coming out. My name is Daniel Paulsgraf. I own WheelHouse Art, and it is my absolute pleasure to present to you my good friends Matthew and Mitchell Bradley and their show Both And. I'm extremely excited to be able to show their work here. I've curated around over the years and been able to include pieces here and there, but I'm happy to be able to finally have a space where I can dedicate a whole entire show just of their work. We go back since about the mid-90s. We went to school at Murray State together, and I always said that Matthew and Mitchell are the most talented artists I've ever met in my life. They could literally poop on a piece of paper and make it look fantastic. It's kind of sickening, to be honest, how much talent they've got. So, but I'm glad they're still working and doing it, and I'm really glad that they're doing it here. So I haven't, typically with every opening I do these little talks with the artists. It's been about 30 minutes or so talking about their work, and usually I prepare already set questions, and I just ran out of time, so I'm completely unprepared. Fortunately, I know Matthew and Mitchell are good at talking about their work, and so I don't think we'll have any problems. And please feel free to just like pop your hand up and if you guys have any questions or want to talk about anything in particular either. So welcome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you, Dan.
So I guess if you don't mind, just kind of, for anyone who hasn't already read your artist statement, give a brief little rundown of thematically or whatever behind this show, Both And.
Oh, okay. You want to?
No, you can handle it.
We titled the show because we wanted to do something that, talked about us being twins and collaborating. And we thought about the philosophical concept of both and, which basically means when you're presented with an either or situation, maybe you should consider both as the solution. And it also, talks to how us as humans can think of multiple contradictory, sometimes, completely opposite things at the same time, which is what sets us apart from AI and artificial intelligence and technology and things like that. Mm-hmm. So all of this work we've created over probably the last, 9 months to a year. We take a lot of photographs. Together we have about, 78,000 in our library. And so I culled about 500 from the last year or so, and then distilled them into the imagery you see here today, which is all of them have some kind of inherent contradiction. The main one being that they're real and fake at the same time. And they all have different stories, but we'll just let you figure that out and keep it kind of vague.
So it's kind of, you got like these opposites, these dual things, pairing them together, and you guys are, one of the most famous set of twins in Louisville. Everyone sees you guys walking down Market Street.
Yeah, our uncles are.
They're how many times you guys get honked at? I don't know.
Yeah, we do get asked, "Are y'all twins?" Everywhere we go.
Yeah. So what kind of things would you consider that are opposites between the two of you?
Ooh,
oh,
yeah.
Well, obviously, I'm the only one talking.
Well, I just didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah,
like a normal.
That's the first.
Yeah.
A lot of people say he's friendlier than me.
Yeah. Well, I have to be friendly.
Yeah,
I get paid to
works
be friendly.
in the service industry. So.
A little more bubbly.
Yeah. Well, I've always been the nice one, and you've been the. Not, I wouldn't say mean, but you're, a little harder to get to know.
Okay, I'll take that. The other things are, I guess, thanks for saving me. I thought I had to answer something. I don't know. We're also very similar, but we're also very distinct people that all of our friends can probably and family can attest to. That you know, you're going to get a different response from each of us with the same question usually.
Yeah.
So you use a lot of AI in your work, but you do a lot of the work manually on your own as well.
Yeah.
How do you kind of foresee or hope our culture moves forward with the incorporation of AI into it?
Well, I think it's inevitable. It's a tool and it's easy, and people aren't going to stop using it, whether they have ethical issues with it or not. But for us, we use it mostly we use, for this show in particular, a generative fill AI that comes with Photoshop these days that just fills in the blank. So if you have like a person or a car in your picture that you don't want there, you can just, single it out and it erases it. And it looks like, it gives you several options to choose from too. So you can get things where you wanted it. So that's really the only thing I used with we used with a lot of these images was a kind of an erasure technique, something to take things away rather than to add. But we also wanted to see, because of what they call hallucinations with AI, which is the weird stuff it cranks out, and to see what it would come up with that we on our own wouldn't have. And so for us, that is where the collaboration comes from. We do think that it can be dangerous in the wrong hands, and it's going to be up to us to come up with solutions to those challenges. But it's the cat's out of the bag, and it's not going back in. And everyone I've talked to that has used, say, ChatGPT to help them write something has loved it. It really does help as far as like putting things into, you still want to edit it. It's still not your voice. It's still, but as far as giving you suggestions, as just helping you generate ideas, it's really helpful.
I think that's best way to frame it is using it as a tool, not as a means to an end in itself. And I think that's what a lot of people have issues with AI art, whereas people just putting in prompts and taking what comes out, and then that's it for them. Not doing anything with it.
Right. And I mean, I think just for us, we feel better about it just by using it as a tool.
I remember years ago, I may have talked about this at another opening, but I attended this data visualization and digital art conference up in Minneapolis called IO. And AI was really starting to blow up around that time. And I remember there was one artist who did a presentation there, and she was imploring artists to not work with AI. Like, she was scared of it destroying society, yada, yada, not wanting artists to help participate in that process. But I kind of took a little umbrage with that and messaged with her about it a little bit more, and saying basically, if there's people are going to be doing it anyway, I want artists to be in there mixing it and working with it and understanding the processes and what's going on. And it's kind of like our friend Shannon Smeltzer, who I remember talking about when she got a criminal justice degree for undergrad, and she said she did it because you got to know the law to break the law. So I kind of think the same way of artists using AI. So having people that we have similar aligned interests or whatever that are able to participate and work their way around it. So.
I think it's easier for us too, as natural collaborators, to just not feel so such ownership over things. So we're fine with sharing with one another, but if I didn't have him in my life, I would be way more selfish. He's taught me a lot about just sharing in general.
Yeah, the things twins have to share.
Yeah, and I think if anything, that's what this technology can promote too, is sharing and collaboration and making things better for some. Now, there's drawbacks to it, and I think that as people like I was reading today, someone was talking about if you put a book on Amazon shortly thereafter, a synopsis of it written by AI, which may not be factually accurate, or something you didn't condone pops up right afterwards that people buy instead, like, students looking for crib notes or, summaries. And they get the money instead of the author. And, so that, there's bad actors out there that I think would probably take advantage of some of the flaws, the holes. But I think as people learn how to deal with it, I have faith in humanity as far as like making moral choices and ethical decisions on how those things, will be accepted. But
Good for you.
I think I don't know. I'm an optimist, though, and I see us surviving lots of different things that others love to doom scroll about, I guess. But
So since you brought it up about being collaborative with your work, how much of a balance is there between the two of you collaborating on the work? Do you actually collaborate into pieces together, or is it more Mitchell does one thing, Matthew does another, and kind of critique each other or whatever?
It's a little bit of both.
It's both and.
Yeah, it's both and.
But like for a lot of it, I think it got to a point where trying to tell who did what didn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
So we just stopped thinking about it in terms of that, because like a lot of the photographic work we come across, it's merged together on our computer. So unless you really wanted to know, you can't really tell who took what. And so we stopped trying and just put both our names on everything.
Yeah, it's easier that way. I mean, we could get very specific about who did what, but it didn't seem
it wouldn't be the same thing if I did my work alone. It wouldn't have his influence.
Oh yeah, I mean, we kind of like coach and direct each other depending on who's doing what. I mean, like there was one piece in particular I'm thinking of that I started on and he didn't really care for, and so I kept working on it till he liked it, or at least approved.
Well, I wouldn't say I didn't care for it. I just wasn't challenged by it enough. I felt like it could be stronger in ways. So
yeah,
I'll give my 2 cents. And
whereas I would have been done. I would have been like, okay, I'm done with that. And then I thought about what he was saying and I worked on it some more. But, it can have drawbacks too, in that, sometimes you can overcomplicate things or overwork things or think too long and too much about something.
Or I'll like something early in the process, or maybe edited in a different way than he does. But then after looking at it over a period of time, the solutions end up making sense to me. So, but it's not always automatic. So I think that's what keeps us kind of challenging each other and the things we like to make for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. And I think you guys are fortunate to have that. A lot of, I think about like when we were in school and going to classes, drawing class or whatever, and always having these big, intense crits over the work where everyone's, going over the work, good or bad and whatever. Right. And once you're out of school, oftentimes artists like myself will just find yourself alone in your studio, and that's it. Like, you don't take a portfolio full of your work to your friend's studio and do critiques with each other there.
Yeah, not usually.
You got it built in your own home.
Yeah. Yeah, we're lucky. Yeah. I think all twins are lucky.
Yeah. A built-in partner.
Yeah. What are some of the drawbacks do you see?
Walking around with a mirror everywhere, you become super self-critical, especially, when we were teenagers and stuff. But I think also it can give you more self-assurance, or at least a clear picture of who you think you are to other people that, I think, what do you call it? Like a single birth? A sense like, I don't know anything about these single birth people. But I do think that, like, you just, yeah, you get a natural collaborator, a natural, like, you know, an extra set of eyes and hands that can help you actually do stuff. We're lucky though, because not all twins are as collaborative or as interested in working together, and we, you know, we get a lot of, I guess it's mostly astonishment because we still hang out together. Most adult twins will live separately, have complete separate lives, maybe even move to other places.
Yeah,
to
but
get
just
away
walking
from one
around
another.
together, it's quite a spectacle, as anybody who knows us can say.
And it seems to be more too when we're out of town. In Cincinnati, we were asked like 15 times.
Oh yeah, we couldn't walk a block without being approached by strangers.
Yeah, are y'all twins? And we've also
How can you
realized,
say yes and how can you
yeah,
say no?
well,
Sometimes he keeps walking and I'll have a conversation, or he'll take control and I'll
Well,
keep
you're the
walking.
bubbly
Yeah.
one.
yeah.
Yeah, we alternate sometimes though, you know, keep it interesting.
We also noticed that, like in New York, I think it's a northern southern thing. They told us we were twins.
Yeah.
You're twins.
Yeah, they were asking us. Yeah.
It's down here. People ask. They're like, "Are y'all twins?" When it's obvious, yes.
Yeah, you need to come up with like good stories about something like
We
being
did-
conjoined at birth. And
Yeah.
you have a saw. chop
Or we
in
just
half.
say no and keep walking.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we just met or something.
Yeah, we just met. This guy? No way. I don't know him.
We've got a show stealer.
Yeah.
So, like when I was talking about earlier at Murray, you guys made the most gorgeous drawings and lithographs and everything. It was amazing work. I can see even some of even in this work, threads dating back to some of your print making and lithography that you did back then.
Yeah.
But how much do you guys still do any drawing or painting or?
Drawing mostly, watercolor painting, which classifies under drawing mostly. But no, not really. I mean, like, I guess probably early 2000s, we moved into using computers and tech-based art.
I was going to
as
next
a-
question. How long? Yeah, like when.
Well, it was a response, I think, more towards not having those studios available to us anymore. It's expensive. It's expensive to
Yeah.
maintain, and it's
And clean.
Yeah.
yeah. And so
Or sharpened blades.
and it's easier to move a laptop or a hard drive or a camera around than it is a table saw or.
Yeah.
So we kind of shrunk our practice down into the computer and making it more portable. But then over the years, digital art and digital-based works have gotten a lot more attention and prominence and new markets. So we've sort of just continued on with that. Although we do, we would love to make more physical 3D and drawing, painting, kind of traditional art. And we still do, but just not as often.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember like when we had the show at the local speed satellite space
Yeah.
in
Oh,
the
yeah.
market, and you guys did that great installation with all the pool noodles and
Yeah.
black lighting and
Yeah.
everything else, and you guys did other installations around or I don't even know, sometimes you might even classify them necessarily as installations, but you would do things for different clubs or whatever.
Yeah.
How do you think that kind of work has maybe influenced your digital work?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a part of our aesthetic. Like I always like a darker background with some imagery, especially with video. I like the idea of building off of a black space with points of light or color, or taking a photograph and creating motion. And with the layers in our photographic based pieces, we want to get as far away from the photograph as possible so that it becomes more about an illusion than a concrete image. But what was the question?
I don't remember. Oh, the influence of the installations.
Oh yeah, well, and just
yeah.
like I think being night people, we've always, lived at night. We see the world in the evening light, and so a lot of our work ends up being, kind of, it wouldn't look you know, the same, I think, if we were daytime people. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And we still like, you know, we appreciate the kind of like, especially with the video pieces, creating an illusion that doesn't have to be watched like a start to finish kind of thing, but something that you could pick up and look at for a minute and leave it be and come back to it later. So it doesn't have to live in a linear time, but more just like a slow movement that kind of creates a hypnotic effect.
Can share a few examples of some of the dichotomies of symbols within some of the works in the show. Like, you know, like you have some Greek sculpture with the very contemporary digital artwork mixed together. You know, there's any snippets
that
you
goes towards the polarization, the opposites, the classical idea of beauty. This one is interesting because it's the famous sculpture of a headless Nike. And I used the generative fill, and I did use a prompt on that, and I asked it to create a beautiful woman's face. And it created a face that looks kind of like Rihanna or Tyra Banks, which probably would have been on a Greek statue at the time, but in our culture is considered a beautiful face. So I thought, well, why couldn't it be
Those are both very
Tyra
good choices.
or Rihanna? And at the same time, it has a sort of robotic look to it that takes it into a technological age. And then some of the other ones, they have, like we said, they're all primarily photo based. Nothing is being invented as far as like, you know, drawing from our imagination or anything on a lot of these, but they take on a more, you know, illustrative effect, a more graphic look, intentionally to kind of, you know, as the title suggests, bring in both, to bring in the artist hand as well as the, you know, technological hand, really. But trying to think of any in particular. A lot of it has to do with twins, with clones, with reflection. Conceptually, it's all about, you know, combining the same thing twice to not only question what that multiplicity means to everything, but as twins to reflect ourselves in the work. And then some things are just as simple as taking something very literal and making it abstract. So you combine, you know, the combination of something concrete with something, you know, more ephemeral.
Yeah, you have a little bit of everything in the show, genre speaking, from abstract, figurative, floral, even some landscape, architectural.
Yeah.
You know, do you have any favorites of genre or artists that that you think about with your work?
Well, I think as artists and as human beings, we're naturally attracted to other human beings, and especially the face. We like figurative work a lot. But at the same time, you know, we wanted to create something, especially for this show, considering the venue, that could, you know, kind of be something for everybody. We wanted the full spectrum, you know, which is obvious in some of these pieces that it literally have spectrums in them. But also we just, you know, when we thought of color, we wanted to work with its complement to reinforce the opposites aspect, as well as, you know, we just wanted to make you question what and how these things were made. Like, you know, is this painting? Is this watercolor? Is this drawing? Is this computer based? Is it photographic? Like all of those things blurring together sort of to create something maybe not so new, but
well, it wouldn't exist otherwise.
Yeah,
it
something that
couldn't be
is
made any other
individual, drawing on the fact that, you know, as twins, we're still individuals. We still have, you know, personalities that are separate, and, you know, separate lives. But we do think that in the future, and as we live now online a lot, that persona that's developed as a digital twin is something that, you know, isn't necessarily you, but looks a lot like you and sits beside you and is presented in a way that isn't the way that you actually are. And so we wanted to call that to attention to, like with some of these works that are more figurative based, you know, just like this purple one on the top here is about the different faces you present to the world, both digitally and physically, and how all those personas coalesce into one entity, but that they're all separate. And then, you know, some of these are just simply about, you know, architecture or historical kind of, not necessarily contamination, but, you know, when you change who tells the history, you change how it's told and what it is. And so, you know, this one too is also about, you know, like recreating history to suit your needs, or, you know, we see a lot of it in politics where people will hide behind, you know, certain things. But yeah, I don't know. I think many of these are just contradictions, mostly opposites, things that, you know, shouldn't go together but do.
Or, you know, trying to capture an illusion, like the illusion of success.
Yeah. Or there's many pieces that are, yeah, just simply reflecting on themselves and showing both angles at once.
Like the Janus.
Yeah. Which, you know, we also think of as like a personal symbol for us.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
But yeah, the idea of doorways and portals and past and present, all of that plays into a lot of this stuff.
That's all that I have. We have time for maybe one or two questions if anyone has something.
Yes.
I've got a question.
Uh-huh.
Picture in the middle there.
Uh-huh.
When you start to do that, you know, like if I was to draw a picture of you, I see it, I have it, that's my end goal. So when you're doing this, do you have an end goal in mind, or you say, damn, that's it?
Well, it doesn't, it's never like, one thing I learned is that you always have a point of departure, but you never know where you're going to land at the end. And especially when you're creating something with video, little milliseconds add up, and, you know, 1 second you have something you really like, and then you mess it up, and then you have to resort everything, and it reminds me a lot of trying to, especially with this piece, trying to capture a fluid moment, kind of like a texture more than something that you don't have to watch in a linear storytelling way. So they all started off as still images. So then the first part is just taking the still photograph and then giving it motion. You know, I think of it as like because they're balloons in the source of the image, I thought of like lungs and breathing and the idea of water and heartbeat, and then about circulation and creating these kind of you know, abstract illusions that give you those feelings, but without being literal lungs or hearts or, you know, things like that.
Question number 2.
Uh-huh.
Do you think that AI will hinder the human brain development and imagination?
I feel like it's also one of those things that it's power and limitless potential becomes like a tool that can give people almost like magic powers, because you could take something from your brain and type it out in a sentence and have something that illustrates it perfectly without, knowing how to do any of the process that got to that image. And I think that's where people are, I guess, concerned, is that who gets that power and what they could do with it if it's abused. And so for us, it's always been about, like, the experimentation and exploration of what's possible, but not necessarily like any dangers involved, like, but then I think also anything made with AI should be labeled or should have some sort of disclaimer to it, so that people don't have to be concerned over deciding whether it's fake or not. Because I think that's what most people get hung up with, is like, well, that's not real, or that's, that's, it's like, it's hard to tell make believe when they're getting so good at it. And so that's where the danger is. But I think they'll figure out a way to label it, or to make sure everyone knows that you're not being deceived, because I think it's all about deception when we're really talking about something that has so much more potential than just being able to deceive people. And for us, it helps a lot in the creative process, because what would take hours of redrawing or manipulation can just be done with a simple
It
box.
speeds things up.
Yeah.
And that's what I think with like education is, like, I think these kids today will just be able to do what we did faster and more of it. I think if anything, it creates
using your hand,
more jobs, more work.
Well, you just be able to.
There's still people that will be drawn to that, though. I don't think it's going to stop anybody that loves to draw. I don't think it's going to stop anybody that loves to write. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a writer, and he's like, that's what I love about writing, is constructing the sentences. I don't want a robot to do that for me. I like that aspect of the job. But if you're somebody who doesn't write normally and has trouble putting together sentences, you can, use this tool to do it effectively and quickly without all that struggle. And in that way, it frees up a lot of your brain power that you would spend on
process.
Yeah. But it also, like anything, it can be used in the wrong way.
Would Picasso still be Picasso?
Yeah, I don't think he'd even touch AI.
I might have an iPad.
Yeah. But I think that it just depends on your perspective and what you want from it. If it's important for you to have that authenticity, that signature on it, if you have a certain type of style or something that you want to claim that you don't want anyone else having, but I don't know, proprietary rights and ownership, all of that stuff's coming into question, especially on those sorts of topics, because it is, people have been dealing this, since the internet started, because it's just copies on top of copies on top of copies, and that's how it works. So you kind of have to
be okay with copies.
Yeah, kind of. But but there are serious, implications, and there is that's a lot of what people ask today is like, how do you teach kids if they can cheat? And I'm like, kids never stop cheating.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I didn't do my homework. I found the class behind mine in the bin, and I took it and filled it out real quick before the class started.
Maggie remembers.
Yeah, Maggie remembers. But, and I think it's the same sort of impulse, and if you're attracted to that, it is a shortcut. But it is something, too, that I think that as we grow to use it, as we find it indispensable, like cell phones and computers in general, it just speeds things up. It just makes it honestly, I think it makes more work, because now you have to proofread. You didn't write the sentence yourself. Now you have to analyze it and proofread it and decide whether it's even something you want to use, which wastes time. Honestly, half the time it would probably been easier just to write the sentence yourself, draw the drawing, paint the painting. In some ways, it's, if you're talented and that's what you're trained in doing, it can be easier or faster. But I think for people, it's an egalitarian thing to me. It opens it up to so many more people. There's a lot of people who think that they have no artistic skill or talent, yet they have ideas and they have no idea how to put them out. Well, if you have a script idea or, some project you want to do, an animation that you want to do, there's now tools that can help you do that quickly and easily without all of that, struggle. Rigmarole. And maybe
It's one of our favorite
it's
words.
scary for sure, but I think that we'll learn how to adapt and we'll use it.
Or the world will end. Either one.
Yeah, either way, both
Yeah.
and, but yeah, I think it's an exciting time to be alive, and I think that there's a lot of things happening that are progressing forward, and it's difficult to see when so many other things are going on that seem retroactive or backwards, but
Always look into the horizon.
Okay, well, speaking of exciting times,
Maxing out your memory. Maxing out my